Hello, everyone. So, second to last panel of the day. Very exciting. Glad we have more than 5 people here. Last time I did a panel this late in the day, Perrin let me offer beers to people in the audience, but I don't see him here, so we're going to probably not do that. But I'll give you a free beer at the cocktail hour if you make it. That's my promise. So I'm Matt Duffy. I'm the VP of Marketing at Jumptap, and we have a panel today on moving money into mobile, and we have a great panel. I'll let them introduce themselves. We have 3 agency guys and a client-side guy, and then obviously an audience platform-side guy. So why don't I let you guys each introduce yourselves and your roles.
Jeremy Lockhorn, VP of Emerging Media at Razorfish. I've been with the company for 16 years, which feels like a lifetime. Actually, it does not feel like a lifetime. It has gone very quickly, and I've loved it. But it is a lifetime in this industry. So my role is basically to evaluate emerging channels such as mobile, and then function as educator and consultant to the agency and our clients.
My name's Andy Hoffman. I'm the director of mobile for Mobext, the mobile agency of Havas Media. I've been there for a little over 2 years, and thanks for having me here today, guys.
That was short and sweet. I like it. Dan Wittmers. I'm the Associate Director of Mobility at Initiative and the founder of the Mobile Leaders Alliance. Essentially, my day-to-day role is to oversee mobile from a strategic as well as executional standpoint for Miller Coors, Hasbro, Arby's, and a few other clients out of the New York Initiative office.
That was quick, too.
Yeah, I do what I can.
Louis Goldman. I'm the client. VP Product Development at Metlife. Been involved in online marketing on the client side for most of my career, including at Citibank, 1-800-Flowers. Also worked at CNBC in the early days of cable television, so I see some interesting parallels between the development of the mobile ad market and the cable television market, which maybe we'll get a chance to talk about. So thanks.
Cool. All right, so we're going to try to keep this free-flowing. We've heard a lot today already about the barrier to get clients like Louis to spend more money in mobile, or whether that's even something that people are trying to do.
I didn't bring my wallet today, just so all of you know.
We heard earlier, I don't know if folks were in on the panel with Brian Decker from Mindshare, but he talked about how one of his clients spends 30% of their budget in mobile and another one spends 1%. So we're all over the map, but generally speaking, I think we know that budgets lag usage right now in mobile. So what we want to talk about a little bit about is, especially for you agency folks, when you have a client who isn't spending as much as you think they should in a certain category, whether it be mobile or another one, what's sort of the best way to move them in the direction you want to move them? Is it showing them that it's measurable? Is it coming up with a really cool creative idea that involves mobile and pulling them in that way? Or do you not even care whether they do mobile or not? You just want them to spend a lot of money with you?
Everything except that last one, basically. No, it's a combination of all of that, right? There is certainly some education there, showing the numbers, showing the usage numbers, drilling into their particular audience, or even a subsegment of their particular audience, right? That may be difficult to reach via other channels. Talking about measurability is certainly a piece of that. And then, I think also the thing that's unique about mobile is that it cuts across everything else too, all other channels. And so I think telling the story about the intersection between mobile and TV, or mobile and your print ad, and mobile and your out-of-home campaigns also helps, right? Because now and I've heard this several times today already, and we've been talking about it forever, but it really is the connective tissue that brings all those things together. And so I think that's where we try to take it, is let's make it not just about a discrete channel. It can be that, but let's make it, the centerpiece of a campaign.
Yeah, I think the biggest point there is it's not necessarily about how much they're spending in mobile. You can give me a client that's spending 4% of their budget in mobile and 30% of their budget in mobile, and I can make that work for their brand. It's about spending the money more intelligently and making sure that every dollar spent tracks back to some sort of either return on that investment or some sort of learning for the agency and the brand. I think that's one of the things that really gets skipped the most, is really creating that foundation for their mobile strategy or mobile presence, as it were, that tends to lead to, well, we spent $40 million last year and we didn't see anything from it. Well, the problem is you created one app and you spent the rest of the money on just seeding that app out, right? That's not going to do anything for your business because you sell a physical product.
We do a lot of client education, sometimes multiple times, depending on how many times a client turns over in 1 year. But using that as like our basis, and really, as Dan mentioned, creating a foundation for understanding and for trust with the space. Everyone has seen the Mary Meeker study at this point. Like, we don't need to keep looking at 23% versus 1% or whatever the numbers are today.
Well, I think the important thing, sorry to jump in on you, is those numbers are skewed, right? Because
it has
time
teams now.
spent doesn't break out whether they're in-app or mobile web or voice or text, really.
Right.
So using those numbers, it's a little bit obscured.
Right, and that's why you can't just look at the Mary Meeker study and say that, okay, look, 23% of everyone's time spent with media is this. You really have to think about what is the program? What are we trying to accomplish? Is it a video-focused program? Is it a program that's focused more on app acquisition? I hope that there will be a large portion of a budget for an app acquisition campaign. But then also, brand awareness. What types of brand awareness? How can we use the space? How can we use the things that are explicitly built for mobile to reach our clients' objectives?
Yeah. So, Louis, as the token client on the panel, talk a little bit about Metlife and what you guys have done or not done in mobile, and sort of how you come at this.
Sure, thanks. First of all, I run the U.S. direct business, which is selling life insurance directly to people rather than through agents. It's a business we started about 4 years ago, and we've really built the business through direct response. So we tend to focus very much on performance. You mentioned the Mary Meeker study, and that's so true. The other thing that's interesting is people tend to lump tablet and smartphone together as mobile. We view them very differently. We view tablets much more like desktops. Smartphones are really for servicing, and the data really supports that. Tablets are a lot closer to desktops in terms of getting people to open up an account, get a life insurance policy, which is the business that we're in. So our focus has really been, on what kind of return we can get for different levels of spend. We've tried mobile a few times with our core product. I think part of that has to do with the product that we have, which is a term life insurance policy is sort of like getting root canal. It's a very painful, long application process, and also involves somebody coming to your house or office and taking blood and other fluids from you as part of the process of underwriting. We have introduced.
You can't do that all on the smartphone?
We can't. We keep
Not yet.
trying to.
You're going to be able to start taking blood right through the thumbprint on
Yeah.
the new iOS 8. It'll be awesome. For anyone with diabetes, look out for that. It'll be fantastic.
Actually, I think that may come soon. Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
good.
That actually does happen, Dan.
I'm ready, man.
But in terms of, so we tend to look at it from an ROI perspective. We haven't really seen that work. This year we've introduced some simplified underwriting products which basically don't involve somebody coming to your house and taking fluids, and actually we're going to have an online application in the first quarter next year for some of these products. I think that's going to have us relook at mobile as an opportunity to acquire customers. What we have done very aggressively is move servicing and helping people keep abreast of what's going on in the application process online, so using it from a servicing platform. So we think of smartphones for servicing, tablets for originating, if you break out sort of the mobile world. Do you go along with that, Melissa? All right. Melissa Grady is here she runs our e-marketing at Metlife.
So let's talk a little bit about this. This is another topic that's been talked a lot about today, but measurement, mobile measurement, and I've heard a lot of people today say, well, you can't really measure in mobile yet, and yet I see a lot of ways that you can measure that are very comparable to ways you can measure in other channels. Do you guys run into that? Do you run into clients, or do you yourselves run into a frustration or not investing more in mobile because some of the measurements just aren't there yet? And if so, what's the thing that you really get out of online display that you don't get out of mobile that we're still waiting for?
Cookie.
And I would honestly say it's time spent setting the campaign up, right? Rather than coming to me after the RFP's already gone out for digital and you've already decided who you're going to use on that platform and go, hey, by the way, we also need some mobile stuff too, and we need it up by next week. That's not conducive to setting up a campaign that's really going to drive information and data, right? Then it's just a race to the launch date, and you're hoping that everything that you've put in there is really going to drive something on the back end. I think if we spent as much time delving into the setup of campaigns and what we really want to get out of it, and being very clear with our partners about, hey, by the way, I'm going to expect all of these metrics on the back end. Can you do it? If not, I need to find a different partner, right? And just being clear about it. It's way too muddled in terms of, oh, by the way, we meant to tell you we also need to track time spent. That's not something you can just jump into midway through a campaign.
The other thing is you have this additional element with smartphones, which is click to call, right? So now you have a dual response mechanism that really isn't quite as powerful even on a tablet and certainly not on a desktop. So being able to tie, click to call along with, online leads from the device, from the campaign is a level of complexity that so far we've struggled with trying to overcome. And unfortunately, we do a lot of paid search like a lot of marketers, but Google recently made it difficult for you to break out keywords by device, which has made it actually even more difficult for us to track exactly what we're getting from mobile, at least from a lead generation standpoint online. So there's a lot of work that has to be done, in my opinion, on the tracking side. I think it's holding the industry back. You can argue the multiple platforms are an issue as well, but we've pretty consistently, and in my consulting business before I joined Metlife, I found this as well. Basically, 80% of the sales come from iOS users, so that's the platform that we tend to focus on. But the infrastructure really has to be improved to the same way it is in sort of the desktop environment for marketers to invest more money to see that return.
Yeah, totally agree. I'm sorry. I've already spoken. You go first.
Thanks, Jeremy. Yeah, thanks. Guys, don't forget me. I'm on stage too.
What he really...
This is me leaving. So one of the main things that we're talking about is that think about all the steps that we have to do just to get to the point of saying that we can actually show you attribution. We're going to map IP address through a home destination onto another device to be able to then map to you, to be able to create, to be able to show you the full cycle of the way that a campaign is actually working or how mobile fits into the function. But 2 years ago when I started at Mobext, that didn't even exist, or it was just like a very nascent technology. So to think that from like when I was sitting up here 2 years ago, you couldn't even have a middle layer, middle funnel where you'd be able to do some sort of lookalike retargeting or cross-platform initiatives, it's just the beginning of it. So, these technologies, they are very raw, but they're going to continue to get better. It does take a certain type of client and a certain desire to want to be in that forefront or, put a significant enough portion of a budget that we can actually test it and see if it works. And having faith in that it's actually going to, in the end, be successful. If after a week we just decide that, there were no leads or the leads are gone or it wasn't as efficient as another channel, and it gets optimized out, in the short term that can be good, but I think that there's still a lot of testing and learning that needs to be done.
Yeah, and so I agree with what you guys are saying, and it's a tricky, sort of messy measurement space, and it can be challenging. But I think that, and I sort of flippantly said the cookie is what's holding us back, and that is a problem, of course. But I think that we're probably 12 months from an equivalent that will be standard or less. And so that's kind of back to your initial question, how are you motivating clients that aren't spending in this? It's like, this is coming. If your problem has been measurement and cookies and all of that, you've got 12 months before that's going to be done with, and so you've got to figure it out now, or you're just going to be behind. And so I think that helps to be a motivator. And then we've had clients. We've actually had a client come to us and said, I'm spending X% of my budget in mobile now. I want to spend double that. Help me justify it. Mm-hmm. And so we've just sat down with them and worked through, all right, well, what are the things that we can do to get as close as we can to how you're measuring everything else, and create those proxies, to build the case. And this is a different client, but a retail example for that is, making heavy use of things like store locator, as a clear signal of intent to visit the store, right? And, yeah, we can bring those from online, but it's also a very unique attribute of mobile, of course.
Let's talk a little bit about, Lewis brought up tablet earlier. Let's talk a little bit about tablet and whether you guys and your clients group tablet in as mobile, or whether that's sometimes falls within PC budgets. I know a lot of clients of ours, they can easily make the transition from spending on PC to tablet, but sometimes not as much to smartphone. Is that something you guys are running into, and how do you position your story on tablet versus smartphone, or is it all grouped into one story about mobile or digital?
Well, guys, I'm going to go first this time, huh? All right. So one of the things when we think about with just reaching our consumer, obviously from a cannibalization standpoint, people think that a tablet does much more closely mirror a desktop. If we are looking at that just explicitly, from a sales perspective, I know a lot of our retail clients are seeing a large portion of their sales coming from tablet devices now, so the need or the desire to want it to target those devices. Innately, there are a smaller amount of tablet devices in the US than there are smartphones. The way that people are using those devices greatly impact or change, the key is just reaching the consumer. I think from a retail perspective, there is a really strong correlation, especially from some of our fashion clients, to want to be in the tablet space. We had a conversation beforehand, and with Lewis, I was very interested in the sense that, tablet being lumped in with desktop, just from a consumer standpoint. Tablets and apps have direct correlation to mobile apps from a reporting standpoint. Also, I'm just curious to see how you guys break that out for your clients.
For
you,
yeah.
you are the client. Sorry, I'm not the moderator. I'll never be a moderator.
Fail.
Because the tablet experience is similar to the desktop experience, whereas the smartphone experience is a unique experience due to the size of the screen. We don't really focus on breaking out desktop versus tablet sales. The data that I've seen says that 80% of people who use tablets use them at home. And I haven't seen data on smartphones, but it's probably the reverse, right? Probably 80% of people use their smartphones.
It actually skews about the same.
It does?
Yeah.
80% of people use their smartphone at home?
Roughly, yeah.
Wow, that's surprising.
But it's sometimes the patterns are different. I mean, smartphone usage is throughout the day in short bursts, so it can be
True.
at home or work. Whereas tablet tends to be sort of mirrors TV usage.
Right, much later in the day. There's just a direct correlation
true.
from 8 to 12 o'clock.
Yeah. But obviously the mobility, the fact that it's used as a second or a third screen, makes the tablet a mobile device. But because of its size and because of the way people are engaged with it, we find that the usage of it is more similar to a desktop. People are doing more serious interaction from the standpoint of either learning about something or filling out an application or doing online servicing or sort of truly going through their email and potentially reading attachments. As a result, it's more conducive to an acquisition device. The conversion's less. The conversion's not as good as it is on a desktop, but it's still closer to a desktop level than a smartphone level where the conversion is significantly lower.
The one thing that I'm hearing across the board, and I think it resonates pretty well for most of us in this room and in general, is it's not so much about the screen size per se. Yes, you can do some certain things on tablet that you can't do on a mobile device, but it's about user consumption on those screen sizes, right? It's about understanding your core consumer at a level that is way past what we've ever had to do on digital, right? It's understanding what they do on their most private of devices, whether that's a smartphone or a tablet. They do stuff on their tablet that they wouldn't ordinarily do on their desktop, and they do stuff on their smartphone that they wouldn't ordinarily do on their tablet. But if you understand a consumer's pathway throughout the day and how they prefer to engage with those devices, that's where you're really going to start to see a difference in how you can spend and the strategies you can take, right? So I had a conversation with someone recently about responsive design. He asked me what I thought about it, and I said, I love it. I think it's absolutely the future of publishing and development. And he said, well, what do you think about it for my business? So I said, don't do it. He looked at me like I was crazy, and I said, look, for what you're doing in the space, a responsive design site isn't going to work for your business. And it's about understanding what's going to work for your business the best that's going to dictate your strategy. It's not the screen size, it's what your consumers are doing, how they're consuming. And so when I talk about testing with my clients or with our clients, it's really about testing to learn about your consumer. It's not about testing new technology per se all the time, but it's about testing little bits of the puzzle that are really going to help you put together a picture of who your core consumer is, what they're spending time on, and how they like to engage with your brand on the specific devices. And that's why when I talk about really setting up campaigns for success, it's about having an understanding of what you want to learn about your consumer after that campaign is over, right? It's not just about selling more products all the time. Sometimes it's about an educational process in learning what your consumers are doing, when they're doing it, where they're doing it, and how they're doing it.
That's so true about responsive design. You know, I'm a big believer in responsive design sites. When I was consulting before Metlife, there were several clients I put into it. And that was the first thought I had. We need to do a responsive design for this new application we're developing. And they said, no, actually, the application won't look right. We need to optimize it for each one of the mobile devices for it to really flow properly and look properly for, you know, for customers. So that's good that you had that sort of perspective based on the person's business.
Typically speaking, if someone asks about, hey, do you think we should create an application? My typical response is, do you have a mobile website yet? And if the answer is no, that is my first avenue I push them down, because to have an understanding about what your consumer prefers per device, right? You may find out that your iOS users go to one section of your website first, whereas your Android users kind of steer towards a different section, right? So if you know what they prefer on each platform, when you do go to make your application, you can do it at an intelligent level by putting the things that those users like the most about your product or your service. You can put those forward facing, right? And have an understanding that this is what they want out of our brand or out of our publication or whatever it is, right? And that's what makes going native so powerful is the ability to really tap into those pieces of the puzzle. Now, if you're seeing results that are pretty much dead even across the board, maybe you move from, instead of a native app, you go to more of an HTML5 hybrid where you can do one update and it's updating across the board. And then you spend less time worrying about what your iOS users, your Android users, your Windows Phone users are doing, and more about making a better product for your consumers as a whole.
You guys bring up actually a good point, which is the whole sort of app versus web debate, mobile. And you know, I know there are a lot of advertisers out there that some of their hesitancy to advertise more in mobile is, I don't even have a mobile site yet. How can I think about advertising in mobile? I'm not even in mobile yet. And one of the things that we've seen, I'm sure you guys have seen, is you don't necessarily have to have a mobile site. I mean, it's a good starting point to gather some data, like you said, but a lot of companies like Stop and Shop has no mobile site, but an amazing app. And it works really well, but for the campaigns they ran with us, they wanted to use landing pages, so mobile landing pages. And so that's the other thing that I think is important to make sure people understand is you don't have to have a mobile site to do mobile advertising. You can have really successful mobile campaigns. In fact, even if you do have a mobile site, you should probably have custom landing pages, you know, for the campaigns, because you can do what you want to do with it, as opposed to your mobile site, which is usually not as flexible. But what I'd love to change gears a little bit right now. I don't know how much time we have left, but so what I would love to see at an event like this soon is less talk about budgets and why aren't people doing mobile versus tablet versus PC versus TV, and it seems to be the topic of these events, which is a very important topic, but I'm excited for the point where it's just a given that people are just spending in mobile, and like that's off the table, and we just talk about really cool mobile programs. And so I'd like to, if you guys are cool with it, I'd like to, we didn't plan this, but I'd like to segue a little bit into, I think if I was in the audience, I'd love to hear just each of you come, you know, one really cool mobile program you've seen that, you know, it might have been a cross-screen program or just mobile, but somehow incorporated mobile in a positive way. And Make it fun, for crying out loud.
Boy, that's a tall order. Make it fun too. Yeah, and no planning either. So I'll go back to the retail example. So we've been doing store locators for this retail client forever, and for last year in the holiday timeframe, obviously crucial shopping season. We did not only a store locator, but tied into a real-time inventory system. So, and then we're pulling dynamically. Here are the hot products, and you're 3 miles away from the store, and that store has 10 of that item in stock, right? So go now, and here's a deal on it. So I don't know that that's super sexy, but it's incredibly effective. It marries everything that mobile does well, right? It knows the context of the consumer, it knows that they're close, and it knows what's hot, and it delivers against all of that, and just works really well.
I really like what's been going on in terms of the advertiser opportunities with Flipboard. I like the idea of being able to optimize or create custom branded magazines. We've been doing it a lot for some of our higher end clients. There's just like a comfort, but also like as like a segue or like a first foray into mobile. I think that having social magazines that are optimized for multiple devices does just help to push the envelope along the way that where that traditional just ad page from a tablet app isn't going to work.
Seriously, you must have been in my head right now, because you set this up perfect for one of my favorite mobile executions I've ever seen. And honestly, some of you may not have seen this before because it actually didn't happen in the U.S. It was a company by the name of Brandtone had put together an execution for Carling Black Label. How many of you have seen the execution for the Carling Black Cup? Anybody? Bueller? No? Sweet. But essentially, what made this campaign amazing is they literally created a holistic campaign where they didn't promote it very much in mobile, right? It was a lot of promotion work on television, print, radio, but what happened is they brought it back to a mobile experience. And the best part about it was there was no site, no app. It was all done through SMS. Because in South Africa, most of their phones are feature phones, right? So they wanted to make sure that they were speaking to the broader masses, the general public that was there on a platform that they understood and knew how to use. And essentially they created a championship game between the two South African soccer teams where they allowed the fans to be the coaches and they actually chose the starting lineups through surveys or polls and quizzes and stuff like that. And you could actually make real-time substitutions during the game by voting in. I mean, it was amazing. They had over 85,000 people in attendance at the game, millions watching on international television. It was brilliant, and it kept mobile as the center focal point of the campaign, but they used every other platform to push the whole thing forward.
That's cool. Very cool. Louis, now obviously your campaigns are more performance related, but that doesn't mean they can't be cool. You can talk about some success you've had with click to call or just anything you've seen. That's
we were the first to introduce an app status for life insurance, like when your medical exam comes back and a link to go and check out your results. But I think it's not cool, but to me it's one of the ways that mobile really does deliver something that is unique to both location as well as timeliness and portability. I remember a few years ago when the Cuckoo app, started as a text message only. Now they've got an app. And it tells you in the next few trains, that are coming up and what track they're on. Seems really simple, but I'm a New Yorker and I'm running for a train, and I've used that app repeatedly. And I just find that that's just a great example of something that really could only be executed through a mobile device. Fortunately, I haven't figured out how they're monetizing it, but that's one of my favorite apps. Not necessarily cool, but very practical.
Okay, gentlemen, I'm sorry. I'm going to jump in. Does anybody have a question? I have time for maybe one question.
This is the first. Y'all are full of questions
Can
when
you
sit in my
believe
office.
it? Can you believe it? You stopped them dead in their tracks. Okay, given that, gentlemen, final thoughts, and then we'll give it a wrap.
All right, final question. Programmatic, what percentage of budgets do you think programmatic will be 5 years from now for mobile?
137, Bob.
It's not that cut and dry. Like,
$1 billion.
Right.
it depends like what the objective of the campaign is. There's going to
Right,
be some
right.
campaigns where it's going to be 100%.
Yeah,
There's going to be some campaigns where it doesn't make sense.
yeah.
Yeah, my bet is overwhelmingly, it'll be overwhelmingly programmatic.
Yeah, I mean, anytime I can get a computer to do my job for me, I'm all about it. So,
Right,
I mean, that's,
right.
that's usually better. I
It's going to
actually,
be better than you anyway.
I'm waiting for programmatic robots, because that could be a big help.
Not only that, there'll be programmatic creative. So it'll like automatically refine the creative on the fly using different elements and putting it together.
Oh, that's crazy.
Sorry for any of you creatives out there.
But by the way, Dan says if a client's not doing what he wants them to do, he rides a unicycle and juggles. So
I do.
if any
It
of
gets
you-
their attention like right away. It's where the socks come from, actually.
Yeah.
So.
So we should have just done that
I
today.
can tell you where to
but-
get some. Actually.
All right, any more questions? Think we're good?
I'm glad there's no more questions, because let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, my dogs are barking. Mm-hmm. Do you hear them? Yeah. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
No comment.